The the subject that I thought would be interesting, and evidently you thought so too, is the relationship between pictures, as in still pictures, and the conception of an incident as like a video that can take a certain duration. You know, the standard protocol is to ask a person what's the duration of an incident, and that's perfectly legitimate. The idea is to get them into it so that they can observe it.
You have to open the whole thing out to measure it, don't you?
Yes,
You have
yes.
to lay out the whole thing, so it lasted about 6 months. You know, it's
Well,
not taking a peep.
the thing is this: the thing that is not understood easily is that the whole incident is not necessarily recorded. I consider that memory or recall, legitimate recall, takes advantage of the being's ability to move around in time and space, and you put your attention into something in the past or in the future, or often another continent, and you can observe it. And this is the way. If an incident takes 6 months, you start at the beginning and you can go in and treat it kind of like a VCR. You can skip through it if you want. There are a lot of little things that you can do, but the 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 temporal quality of what you're addressing is the thing in question. And we know that people have incidents. Hopefully they're not in restimulation, but you have read my book. You have it, and I address these things as emblems. I don't really talk about emblems too much, except for the book, and I just looked through it today, and it's a good idea. The idea is it's like you have all kinds of YouTube videos on your computer, but they're not necessarily stored on your computer. If they are, they're not sitting and all playing simultaneously. That would be ridiculous, as something out of Harry Potter, you know. But what you do what you do have is these icons. And
I was going to say icons might be the more modern word.
yeah,
Emblems, yeah. Icons, that's the buzzword. All the internet kids are using icons.
well,
thumbnails. What about thumbnails? Let's introduce the term thumbnails.
Of course, thumbnails. You know, anything with a link to it, to the main event. And it becomes semantic in how, you know, what you want to use. I mean, I could see myself using emblems in one environment and thumbnails in another environment. But we were talking about the same thing. You double click on this, and it opens out the entire thing. It starts playing. And
that's a good metaphor, yeah.
Yeah, and the thing that really made me look at this is running an incident that took most of a lifetime. But the incident started, but we're looking for the source of a certain fear or something, certain non-optimum emotional state. And when I asked the person to look at this, they got a window. A window with bars. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's it. And when we prodded on this, we dated it. We do all the little things you do to gain access to it. It turns out that this traumatic incident took much of a lifetime where a person was incarcerated. And it would have been fine. It would have been, I think, impossible, in my estimation, to find this by looking for an incident, especially not knowing how long it was, and the idea that it was an entire lifetime. The thumbnail or icon, if you like, gave us access to it, and in itself, it meant nothing. I mean, yeah, it was a moment out of that incident. Another one comes to mind that had a lot of emotion on it. And this actually, these pictures can attach to the body.
Sure.
And I don't recall exactly what got us into it, but there was a picture that was connected with a lot of emotion, a lot of sadness, and it was a doll. It was just a doll, and this person came across this doll and became very emotional, and it turned out that the doll was just something that was present during a particularly upsetting situation where the girl's parents were getting divorced, and it was tearing her up, and she was on a school bus, and she happened to be carrying this doll, and some boy said to her that her parents are getting divorced because of her, and it was her fault. This was devastating to her. What did the doll have to do with it? It's just the thumbnail that represented the incident. It doesn't have to be that integral to the narrative, you see.
The NLP people would call this an anchor.
An anchor.
It's an anchor. It anchors that emotion and event and feelings.
Yeah. Yes.
So, as you say, it doesn't have to be that I mean, it's just a wild, made-up story in one of my books that I've used, you know. But a person gets highly restimulated by black shoe brushes and things like that, and it turns out that just at the time when Mummy ran off and was never seen again, there was a guy with a big black mustache on his upper lip that showed up, and then Mummy was never seen again. So ever after, anything hairy and black is horrible.
Yeah.
Mustaches never did any harm, but the kiddie has firmly anchored this image of a black hairy thing to the fact the mother disappeared forever.
And these thumbnails, I guess we're calling it a thumbnail, they have a use. The main use is to warn the person away from something. Get away, because you click on this thing and you're not going to be happy. So the image comes up, and the normal thing will be to back away from it, so it doesn't ever open up into a video.
But don't we need to go deeper, Hank? Like, why do we make copies of things and then use them to hurt ourselves? Well, you know, we don't just record getting hit by a bus. We make the memory create pain and hurt and fear.
But that's if that's if the whole incident turns on. If a person has this incident of being, you know, mangled by a bus, they're not walking around with this turned on. They'd be not competent to do anything. You know, when a person is right in the middle of something like this, they almost need to be institutionalized. I think Hubbard had a name for this, to be to be experiencing an incident in vivio. That means that you're actually in the incident, in the incident.
Mm.
And if you're in the incident, you cannot do anything. You cannot drive a car. You cannot run a business. You cannot be in a relationship. You're 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 an invalid.
Mm.
And you see this with military PTSD. Some of these people, they are in an incident. Um, you don't want these people around guns. They can't hold a job. They can't be in a relationship anymore. They're screwed. But before it gets to that point, they may have an incident where, or they may have a picture of the incident where they are, um, I mean, just looking at a watch. What would that have to do? Well, uh, they were about to engage in attack, and everybody had to sync their watches. And somehow, this picture of the watch uh, becomes, it warns them away from that type of an event. People also use these pictures to justify and make excuses. And Hubbard had a name for this, which is not understood well within the church at all. But he called it a service facsimile. He called these facsimiles.
Yeah.
And a service facsimile is simply a picture which warns you about something. And let me just knock this out. It's a picture. It warns you about something. It's a warning.
Yeah, I mean, we can understand the value of memory as a learning experience. Don't step in front of fast-moving, metallic, red-painted objects. It'll hurt you. But why do we need to give ourselves a headache every time we think of red buses? What value is these extra layers of
Well,
experience?
well, that's
And
just
the
it.
answer is
You you you
it's no
you
good, is
don't. You if the system is working the way it's meant to work, you don't give yourself a headache. The thumbnail is there. You don't get too close to it. If somebody brings up the subject that puts your attention gradually toward the thumbnail, you change the subject or you leave the room. You've
But
seen
these are
people,
dysfunctional behaviors, Hank. I
but
can't bear you
it's
talking
no,
about buses on a rainy night. Let's come out of here. Ah!
no.
That's
You're talking.
dysfunctional.
It's normalcy.
Well, it's common. Now,
Certainly.
common and normal is not the same thing.
Well, you talk. You're talking to a girl, and just trying to engage conversation, and you mentioned something about I mean, it could be lipstick, it could be guns, it could be about bank accounts, and all of a sudden they just change the subject. They're not even aware that they're doing this stuff. This stuff functions subliminally to where they don't see that it's affecting their behavior. If you rub their nose in it and you say, you know, I was just talking to you, and all of a sudden, I happened to mention something about lipstick, and you got all bent out of shape. What was that about? Uh, unless they've signed up or agreed to some kind of therapy, uh, you're not going to get an intelligent reply because the intent of this whole mechanism is to just keep them backed out from the area. You talk to people about public speaking and see what happens. They'll giggle, which is not appropriate, and they'll change the subject. They won't say, "Oh my goodness, I have a terrible time with public speaking," because by that time they're ready to engage. They're ready to go and take a course in public speaking. But normal people are terrified of public speaking. Was it uh, uh, Woody Allen or no, Seinfeld? Jerry Seinfeld said that if you go to a funeral, um, most of the people at the funeral would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy.
Yeah, I think I heard. It's Seinfeld, was it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's a completely schrecklich experience, and people are not ready to talk about it. So
I'm not
this is
Jewish. What does schrecklich mean?
oh terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Okay.
German actually.
Yeah, but I mean, German Jews gave us quite a lot of language, didn't they?
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't remember it from Yiddish,
or
but
I should say Ashkenazi Jews, basically.
yeah,
But
it's
a lot
well,
of those, of course, ended up in Germany and then ended up in big
yeah.
trouble.
Ein ganz schrecklich experience.
Hank, can I just step in with something? Because I came
Oh,
here on the idea of pictures, and I'm okay with that.
yes.
No problem with it. But Zivarajd Slavinsky came up earlier on. Now, you know his thing, that memory, mind and consciousness, but specifically memory, has several modalities. There's the image, but
Mhm.
there's also the emotion, there's also body sensation,
Mhm.
and there's thought. So
Mhm.
there are sort of four different modalities that go into a memory. I think it might be mistaken to just focus on the picture. There's some kind of experiential recording, and we should be discussing what use is it. But remember, it's not just pictures. See, Hubbard was very dismissive of people that couldn't get the picture. They were all screwed up. They're occluded. They're,
Can
messed
be
up
sound.
people. And in fact, it's not. Sorry, Luca. What?
It can be also the sound or something, thought, sound, different kind of images, motion, like film, movie, can be also not only
Yeah,
one
I
picture.
would have added energy, but I was just quoting
and
Yes.
and
Slavinsky.
Emotion, body
smell.
sensation, like you told. Yes, of course. I agree.
Yeah.
And also all of this stuff can be trigger points for something, for some experience. But in Slavinsky, when he practiced something like that, he used a specific most traumatic picture, and then he tried to clear it with dramatization of this picture, with emotional stuff. After this picture may be again visible, but there is not more charge energy on it.
Yeah.
It's not more traumatic.
Okay.
And also can be replaced with some other pictures, more pleasant, or combine. Also in
Oh,
LLP, you can change color of these pictures, size, and other stuff.
Yeah,
Like
that's
on,
NLP.
well, this is already treating the picture like some kind of a malady.
yes,
I think when you start looking for the emotion and for the physical sensation and all of this good stuff, you are already exploring the incident. The picture is a gateway, and it actually doesn't have a lot of content except that it's a link. It's just a graphic literally a picture. It's an image. Hubbard
But it may
called
not be,
it
Hank. I want to
simile.
argue with you on that point. From NLP, we learn that there are various sensory modalities. Some people cannot visualize, but they're audios. They can hear everything in detail. Other people are kinesthetic. There's olfactory memory. That's a very minor thing. But, if a person's sensory modality is auditory, they're not going to be good at calling up pictures to look at. And Hubbard said that's because they're screwed up and they're occluded. No, it's because their main sensory modality is a different channel. It's like tuned into the sound channel, or you're
Sure.
tuned into the kinesthetic channel, and you're not necessarily tuned into the visual. So
Well,
I think I stretch your definition here to be a bit beyond image.
I would propose that regardless of a person's ability to see the image is there and serves its function. Now, I'm thinking what could be similar. Say the smell. As an instrument maker, I have occasionally had the occasion to file on or grind on ivory, and for me that lights up a lot of pictures because the smell is the same smell that you get when the dentist is grinding your teeth.
Exactly the same smell.
Yeah, and I have to get past that. I have to get past that. And what I do not want to have happen is light up a whole chain of misadventures in the dental chair. I mean, I'm here trying to fix a musical instrument. I am not trying to light myself up with root canals and I mean that would make me dysfunctional. Um,
Yeah, well,
so
I
no,
repeat, we are all dysfunctional. We shouldn't be, but we have stuff back here. Of course, it's not in the head. I'm speaking
yeah,
metaphorically, but stuff back here that screws up our thoughts, our emotions, our body feelings, and our behaviors.
mhm.
They are screwed up. And I'll go back to my more fundamental question: is why do we do that? There's a certain amount of unknownness, isn't there? It's unknownness that's the enemy. If we knew everything about everything, we could still function at a very high level of skill, knowledge, wisdom. We could avoid trouble. We could have beneficial relationships, but we don't. We take the shortcut of pain, misery, and then behave badly because we don't like it. Why? That's
Well,
the real question.
I would propose that it is preventative. It's like you get into an airplane and there is a placard that says, um, landing #1, wheels down. Why do you have this there? Well, you know what happens when you land an airplane with retractable gear and the wheels are up? I mean, you
It's
ruin
kind
your
of
whole,
messy.
yeah, you ruin your whole day. So you don't put it there to obsess about it, but you just put it there so that you glance over this when it's time to land and you avoid that experience, which is inevitable if you forget about it. A lot of analogies in flying like that.
But you're arguing about, the sort of 10 steps to land a plane are logical. An intelligent, highly evolved person would choose these 10 steps. Now, what about in a relationship where we don't want to do, first step, we don't want to do it. Second step, we screw it up. Third step, we do it backwards and so on. And the whole thing ends up in a bust.
Mm.
We're not logical. So I'm with you, a list of logical things to do when you're taking steps in life. It should come as a natural.
Well,
Yeah.
But again,
I'd like to say,
why do we vary? I'm sorry, Norma. I didn't,
oh, that's okay.
yeah.
I'm interrupting you. So,
Yeah, but I've hugged it a bit so far.
yeah, no, it's fine. The things that we hide from and don't want and tuck away in our muscles and joints and our spiritual aura around us are things that are painful. And, I don't think we're trained in dealing with pain. We want to avoid it at all costs. And if we only knew that facing pain and going into it and being brave will get us through quicker, and we won't have to carry the baggage around for a whole lifetime.
Yeah.
If we just knew how to deal with pain.
Okay.
And to now I'm doing a segue into something else, and that is the way I look, because I do clairvoyant reading on people, and if there are things that light up for me, and not necessarily pictures, but there's energy trapped in the chakras, the aura, and even in the body too. As our friend Alan emailed us regarding this. He gets deep body work. And of course, that releases a lot of pictures and emotions trapped in the body. So, but I will see a picture. I mean, it could be a picture, something, and it usually is dark, and it is something that is not moving. It's stagnant. It's sitting there, and it calls to me, and it says, "Hey, look at this." And if I get to I mention that to the client, and get that client to look and feel that the biggest thing is to feel, okay, I see something in your back about, right behind your second chakra. And not that I know what it is, although sometimes I can see a picture. The client is led to that and starts to feel something, and that allows other things to come up, and I can watch the energy come up and bubble up. And then if it's not bubbling up, then I look where it's stuck again, and sometimes it is a picture.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, these things are not going to, as is, if you like, if you're not willing to start the video and start looking at it and feeling, because the video has more than graphics. The video has sounds, it has feelings, it has physical sensations. Let me can I read in Alan's own words?
Yes.
Which Alan are we talking about?
Alan Young is a friend of ours.
Young. Yeah.
He's a world-class jazz pianist, and he's been gallivanting around the world, and he can't join us today because he's on the other side of the planet. This is as usual. I can't participate because of the time zone difference. The subject is interesting, though, because I was just thinking of this. I've been suffering from recurring muscle cramps in the last few years, and I found a wonderful body worker here to clear them out. He does deep tissue massage using a unique method of analysis, the spot where the blockage is. That method is not relevant here, but what's relevant is when he zeroes in on a troublesome area and directly confronts the pain, it starts releasing emotions. And the emotions, when I get inside them, have stories. So a particular knot of muscle or tendon shows up as a demon, in quotation marks, who rages and cries. And when I ask the demon what its story is, I find a baby who has been hurt or threatened. This is not fantasy because from session to session, each tense area produces the same emotions, the same story, and talking through the story helps release the tension. So maybe engrams and or secondaries are stored in specific tissues in the body. Why did Hubbard think that they should be addressed only by talking? I thought of this when one of the stories told me it was about betrayal. And I riffed through my pictures of betrayal, and there's the Sea Org. Oh, yeah. Says, if you wish, you may allude to my observations in your talk. So,
that was very interesting letter and comments, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's fairly widely recognized now. Ida Rolf's work, Rolfing, and do we all know, well, for the recording, let's mention Bessel van der Kolk, who's a professor at Harvard University. He's written a book called The Body Keeps the Score. And it's like the body stores all this crap, in the form of, muscle cramps, pains, and so on. And it needs releasing. He doesn't release in the same way as we do, but essentially he's doing the same thing. You release the memory, get at the truth, eliminate the unknownness, and it will evaporate and go up to the cosmos, if you like, whatever you call that. You call it Azizing or whatever. But what we're actually dealing with the theory of mind, Hank, is they're actually dealing with unknownness. That's the ultimate fundamental. There are things unknown, and we choose. Well, first of all, we are, in my model, we are divine gods that have screwed up, and we're down here. We've lost most of our godly powers. But even if we hadn't screwed up, you can't last very long as a god. You'd be bored shitless after 10 minutes. You're all powerful, all knowing, no game. You know, it'd be absolutely boring. So we selectively choose to unknow things in order that we can have a game. And the game, we all know about that kind of theory, games that are the amusement and interest.
Mm.
But in theory, we could just go back to, you know, by eliminating all the unknowns, we know everything. We're back to omniscience, omnipotence. Whether that would work, you see, whenever I bring this up, people say, oh yeah, but, you know, when we get back there, we'll be all wise and all knowing and we won't make the same mistakes. So I have to point out the illogic of that, which is we were all wise and all knowing and we still screwed up. I'm trying to avoid using the F word. I'm very naughty with it, I'm afraid. But we, you know, we screwed up. So when we're back to all knowing, immortal, all powerful gods, the same thing's going to happen. We're going to screw up again and again.
Yeah.
So, but I do believe that unknownness is the fundamental we're chasing, not pain, not unconsciousness. I don't believe in that Ingram crap anyway. You can't overwhelm a non-material. Sorry, you can't pain. You know, get a non-material being to hurt with pain unless it agrees to. The one thing you can do with a being is overwhelm it. So I believe all that sort of pain and unconsciousness crap is just that. It's crap. It's really overwhelm. The point of overwhelm is where the being implodes and submerges and can then take on calculations, beliefs and positions that it doesn't really want. But it's overwhelmed, so it has, you know, lost most of its choice potential. That's
I like that theory about overwhelm.
Yeah. So overwhelm is a kind of unconsciousness, isn't it? So we don't need the pain, but the unconsciousness, in other words, the unknowing, we do need. Otherwise, none of this would work. We'd all be just gods, and we'd be as happy as pigs in shit, as they used to say.
Well, a lifetime on Earth is very valuable. We learn so much, and we learn it so fast. Having a lifetime without a body, we don't learn as fast. This is very valuable to be on Earth.
I think so. Do you think there's only, well, we know there are other players. I won't go there. Listen, I joined the call to actually share something important. May I have 5 minutes with you guys?
Yes, of course.
Future generations that listen to the video. But this is modern research science about memory itself. And I'm going to quote a guy called Steve Ramirez at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. So we're talking like very high level academic research. And they've used things like propranolol, you know, beta blockers and hypnotism and shock awake, all kinds of things to explore this memory phenomenon. And this is where they've got to, which is that they are now convinced, and of course we've been convinced for decades, but they're now convinced that memory doesn't actually exist. It's not a bunch of file cards stored somewhere, you know, in your gun, pull out the one from when you were 5. That's all baloney. If you want to remember something, you create the memory again and look at it and think, oh, I was sitting in a red car that afternoon. And they even have a term for this now. It's called reconsolidation. And what they've learned, which is very exciting to all of us with this kind of model, is that it's very, very plastic at that moment. It's very bendy and you can mess around with it. And then that's where, you know, getting rid of case phenomena and dysfunctionality can score. At the very moment the person steps into the incident and they put the picture up, they can immediately start playing it and changing it and alter the tune, alter the message, alter the emotions and things. And this is very powerful. And listen, this is 21st century science. This is not Freud. You know, it's like the papers were published about 4 or 5 years ago. So we really have come on a long way from so-called Dianetics, you know, which is all stolen from Freud anyway. That plasticity of memory, I don't just mean brain plasticity, but the memories themselves can be tweaked and adjusted so that they tell you something different, is now modern full-on science. And I'm very excited by this because we kind of knew it in a sort of intuitive, unaware way that we were doing something, but not quite sure why. This reconsolidation mechanism and the plasticity of memory is the key to what we're doing. So it's well worth, A, worth knowing this, and B, if you get really interested, follow it up. Steve Ramirez,
Mhm.
Massachusetts Institute of Technology. In fact, I think I opened a web page before I came here. Maybe not. No, I didn't. Or if I did, I've closed it. Okay, sorry, folks. I was going to sort of read some of Ramirez. Oh, well, maybe there's a. Yeah,
But
no.
what about if it's possible that memory, if it's not storage, can be also storage out of body or be collective, or about I had experienced OBE or out of body experience. There are also, what about these images, for example?
Well, out of body is a very interesting phenomenon, isn't it, Luca?
Yes.
My view is, as non-material beings, we're actually peeping into the physical universe
Yes.
with our eyes. We look in and say, "Oh, there's a wall over there. Oh, there's a tree." We're just kind of peeping into the physical universe, but we're not actually in it. And these so-called senses, like eyes and ears, it's an illusion, because if you've ever been out of your body, I've been out hundreds of times,
Yeah.
you will know that you can see anything, you can hear everything, you can know what's going on in the vicinity or at a distance, but you get visuals, you get auditories. You don't need ears and you don't need eyes to have these perceptions, but it's hammered into you as a kid that the only thing you can see is in your eye. And if somebody hurts your eye, you'll go blind. Well, there are lots of blind people that can read and write. It doesn't bother them. They're technically blind, but they can get by.
This is
It's also
fascinating.
about, I'm sorry, also about, for example, experience of Nikola Tesla and Akashic records. For example, they told, I was written also that he can communicate with other intelligences. From there, he bring here all technology that we have today, like electricity and other stuff. For example,
Well,
from
the
future.
records things, I'm not sure what they are. I mean, I can't accept the model of a book somewhere that's got all pages of history and you're in it. I think that's bollocks. But it's back to what I said about being all-knowing, all-wise, all-powerful. We have that potential within us, but we selectively choose to unknow certain things. Well, the really smarty ones, like Tesla, say, well, enough of that. I'm going to know this, and I want to know how this works. And they get these ahas and insights, and they can build on it. I think they're proof of this all-knowing, all-wise potentiality that we have. And we could probably all do it, except we know we can't, so we never will. But if we know we could, then we will. And that's what I'm working on. I'm not interested in bloody engrams and prep checking. I'm interested in why can't we adopt these abilities like that,
Now, I'd like to make two comments, if I may.
Hi, Tom, by the way.
Relevant? Oh, Tom. Yeah,
To say
Tom.
hello to Tom,
Hey,
whoever
Tom.
Yeah,
A little late.
Yeah, a little late. Well, yeah. Earlier on, I mentioned that memory, the mechanism of memory, is simply that the being can move around in time and space. The being can move around in time and space. That doesn't mean the body moves around in time and space, but the being can move around in time and space and examine whatever it wants. The difficulty, I mean, you could say this many different ways, but the difficulty comes when a person identifies with the body. I am a body. I am a body. What do you mean I create time? What happens if I don't pay the rent? They throw me out. And so you have these 7 chief negative features, from the Michael system. You have greed, for instance. Greed is an inordinate fear of not enough stuff. Well, in order for a being to behave like this, to have this fear of not enough stuff, and exercise the behavior, the compensating behavior of greed, they have to believe that they cannot create stuff. And the thing that'll convince you that you can't create stuff is if you think you're a body. Uh, you know, same thing with, say, impatience. Impatience is a behavior that compensates for an inordinate, irrational fear of running out of time. And it makes people obnoxious, and it makes people overbearing, and because they're afraid of running out of time. How can a being run out of time? A being creates time, but they have to go into this belief, and the identification with the body is very limiting in this respect. I think this is why Hubbard didn't really have this all thought out linearly, but he became obsessed with getting people to exteriorize. Well, I mean, that can become stupid if you don't know why you're doing it. And the problem many people have is that they can't get into their body, but stably. But the thing about the identifying with a body is very compromising. And that is the nature of the lessons in this physical universe.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I've just thought of something else I might like to add, if I may. You
Yes.
know, we heard of this concept of like back in the depths of time down there. Oh yeah, before I even go to that, Herman Minkowski and his so-called world path. This is a mathematical model, but it means every person passes through coordinates that are unique in time and space. And that's our sort of world path. So I've introduced that concept into my supernoetics writing as probably even more powerful than the idea of a time track, which is only time. But we all pretty smart ones anyway, very quickly got to the idea that time and space is the same thing. You know, we have it in our language, don't we? You know, the time I was in Rome. That fixes a time because you're in a place. So they're very interchangeable. So
It's interesting.
Minkowski was, you know, turn of the 20th century. And crap, I've forgotten what I was trying to say, which wasn't that.
Could I add something? Ask something?
About
regarding the plasticity of memory. When we, as a therapist, guide someone into remembering an incident, and it's a particularly traumatic or unpleasant one, and then we had them create an alternate memory or change something in the memory, and have them run that again. Like, is that?
It works beautifully, Norma. I wrote a piece about this in the 1990s, just, you know, I called it rewriting personal history. You know, you got this horrible memory, you went past life, you went into battle, you're a complete coward, you skunked out and ran away. So I said, well, all right, how could we make this better? You know, you pulled out your sword and went and stabbed 20 of the enemy, you were crowned king. Let's run that. Two things you learn. The memory quality is exactly identical with the failed horrible memory, exactly identical. It's not that that one's real and this one's crap. And the second thing is, if you know anything about the GSR metering, the metering responses explode exactly as if it was truth. You know, the meter responses are banging all over the place. So it's just like rewriting personal history. Have a better one. And listen, we all know one person that was very into that. He talked wall-to-wall crap about his earlier life. We all bought into it. But it did him good. He believed in it and thought, therefore I'm great.
Does his name start with T?
No, it starts with an L and an H.
Right.
Hubbard, sorry, I'm not, I don't want to be facetious. So no, Hubbard had all this glorious bullshit history that was totally not true, it emerged. But, you know, it built him up and he believed in himself, and others do. You know, if you look at figures from the past, look at Hitler was an example. What was Hitler? He was a bombed out, failed, snotty little artist that hadn't got any money, but he rewrote all that into some champion picture story that made him king of the world. And hey, he stepped into that model and got it. So it can be very powerful in beliefs.
Yeah.
And we can use it therapeutically, you know, run all the bad stuff by all means, but then follow it up by running some good stuff. Say, no, how could we improve it? You know, I usually say to clients, you know, you can't pretend that Hitler was never born. We can't do that. But, you know, something in the Second World War that you were experiencing was nasty. How could we improve it? Okay, the other troops came up in time, so you didn't get your leg shot off or whatever. We'll run that. And it works just as well as real memory. And this is where you start to get interesting, Hank, because what the hell is real memory? It's all made up bollocks anyway. And that's what the MIT crowd have found. You just make it up and look at it. And then you tell yourself that's the memory.
There's something that rubs me a little the wrong way. The mechanism of as-isness, of making something go poof, okay?
Yeah.
You don't have to use the word, but as-isness, but is to completely duplicate the creation. And when you completely duplicate the creation, it goes poof. I've done this in the mirror.
No, we've all done it. We all know that phenomenon. It's a very powerful and very useful phenomenon.
You look in the mirror and you see yourself exactly as you are. The image will disappear.
Yeah. No, we know the power of that, but as Norma says, and I'm backing her up, that it's totally true. Change the memory, fix it around, and it works just as if it was a real memory. So it kind of tends to evaporate the whole truth of memory as a truth, as an exactness.
Oh,
I'm not sure. I don't buy into that so fully anymore. That's what I'm saying. Right?
I see what you mean. Yeah. I think I try to remember when I'm running sessions on people, running regressions. I'm trying to be accurate just to the point where something will go poof. I'm not trying to create an authentic history. If something is a little wrong, as long as it blows charge, and it doesn't have to be completely 100% correct to blow the charge. You just have to, as is the picture, make the picture go poof. Now,
Right.
once that happens, I have never felt an inclination to go back and change the memory. I do have now, hopefully, the ability to start a new memory, start a new experience in real time.
I think the one thing I think you're missing, Hank, is that you can run an awful lot of good stuff and truth by running mock-ups. So, I mean, you remember there's an old question. If a person can't remember, say, well, if you could remember, what would it look like? And the person describes it immediately.
Yeah.
And that runs out the true version, which maybe is hidden down below. So the guy says, well, I think I was in a silver spaceship, and I'm sure, it'll run out what really did happen, and probably 1,000 other similar events anyway. So it's more a version of that, I think. And it's back to what I said. It's really, ultimately, it's unknowing. So if we can bypass the unknowing and say, well, let's just do it this way, I will do it that way.
Yeah.
Some power. So I'm a little further down the road than Hubbard ever was in that direction. I mean, some other things I don't do, but
I wonder how this works with EFT.
Well, I'm not the wrong person to ask. Maybe Norma would be better, or maybe Tom does it. I don't know, and Luca. I'm irredeemably hostile to this idea. To me, it's just papering over the cracks, and it doesn't do anything. I don't think it as-is anything. And that's based on clinical experience. Let me finish the one sentence. It's only one sentence. Let me finish it. Which is, no person has ever come into my sphere who's had EFT and fixed things that didn't burst into tears the minute you send them back to the event.
Yeah. Well, I think the mechanism, it's much like a touch assist. The idea is you have fear or an unwanted emotion or condition, and rather than go through the narrative of it, some people just don't like to run incidents. They, for whatever reason, they're afraid of them. They don't have the confront. But if you say you put the incident right here, okay, now we're going to tap on it. You're going to tap on the incident. You get blowdowns. You get blowdowns, and the charge goes away, and the person feels better.
I question that. What proof do you have the charge goes away? I have almost proof that it doesn't go away, because the person can be stirred up instantly later on with the right restimulator.
Well, they claim that they feel better and they're happy. They're happy campers. I'm a little, see, I
No
don't
problem
trust
with that.
myself with this because I'm a little condescending about it. I'm really curious about what happened in incidents. I have never backed off from a traumatic incident because it's just too horrible. To me, that just doesn't compute for me. But I see a lot of people like this, and
I,
you had
I
a thought on that, Luca.
Yes, I have experience with EFT, but also have experience with PAT, primal energy activation and transcendation, and the deep platform also Slavinsky. I think that is much more faster than EFT because we recreate pictures. Again, when we recreate pictures, they tend to disappear. Same exact pictures with the same charge. And also when we put, instead of tapping inhalation, deep inhalation, breathing, then and we put energy into this picture, we dramatize this event, then is also the term for psychology, no? Or dramatization, then the trauma disappears. But also when we have possibility to change, for example, a life that we talk about a little bit before, life path or life experience from past life or some other stuff, we can use pictures like symbols.
Mm-hmm.
And where is trauma, we then put this picture with positive stuff. For example, a picture of the sun or flower. For every picture that something has a positive for us, and then is possible. Then there is possibility that find reward to pass through this picture. And when we pass through the picture, like for example, in Reiki, they also use pictures. But we pass through the picture, and when we pass through the picture, also all charge disappear, or trauma event. And he used this in transcendent, his technique, transcendent, I think.
No, listen, guys, I'm
Fascinating.
going to have to excuse myself. Do you mind? I'll listen to you, Norma, but then you'll see me sign off. I have a house full of guests.
No, that's fine. I was
I'll
just
be
commenting.
busy for an hour, so you know, we just slightly overshot the hour, so I will just click up. But I want to hear you first, so go on.
No, go ahead, Luke. I mean, I think it's fascinating to manipulate energy that way and to create a picture of a flower and then pass through it. I mean,
Yes.
I need to know more.
Yes.
Well, that's what a lot of Tibetan tapestry and imagery is about.
Yes.
You have these images and icons, and people work with them rather than working with their own private life experiences. These things have they have symbolism, they have meaning,
Yes.
and if you navigate it the right way, supposedly you end up going to nirvana.
I'm gone, folks. Bye. It's been lovely.
Bye-bye.
Can't wait for the recording.
All right. So nice to see you, Keith.
So, Tom, how would you weigh in on this?
Well, you know, me looking at pictures are sometimes they're kind of difficult to look at, or just trying to see them. But I thought what I forgot his name now, said something was pretty interesting. If you could see it, what would it look like?
Yeah.
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 I like that.
No, I kind of like that. So.
Uh-huh. Could I ask Luca, if I can interrupt?
Yes.
Could you put in the chat window what that, or tell me what the thing you studied about?
Yes, I can put in, it's called spiritual technologies.
Spirit?
Spiritual technologies.
Spirit world technology?
No, only spiritual technology.
While?
Spiritual technology from Živorad Mihailović Slavinsky.
Okay,
Oh,
that one you need to write in the chat window, please.
Yeah, I will write in the window.
Thank you very much.
I have Zivarod's name.
Oh, is that Zivrod? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm not hearing exactly what this is, but you know, Zivarod. Also, our friend Tron is
Oh, yeah.
is
Sure.
a teacher of Zivarod's stuff. Yeah, so I can help you find that out.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think we may have covered this as far as we can go today.
Can I ask
Yeah.
a question?
Oh.
We haven't heard really from Luca something that would introduce him. And so he's just this, at least me.
You missed
Yes.
it.
Yes, I'm sorry because I don't have camera. Something is not functioning properly, and I'm also sorry for my language. My English is not is not so fluent and is not my primal language. I am a tennis coach, tennis trainer, and I am also interested in self-development techniques. I am 39 years old, and I'm trainer of spiritual technologies from Živorad Mihailović Slavinsky, but I use many other techniques for self-development, from audio technologies, meditation, different types of meditation, and so on, NLP, so on, lot of stuff, everything that is functioning, that is something concrete. I have results I try to implement in my self-development techniques, and also from this I try to develop my own techniques.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we might be at a good winding down place.
Yes.
Anybody else have any comments? Anything you want to say or ask before we end off?
I shouldn't be late anymore. The car's I'm almost finished now. Saturday is the only time we can do it.
Well, I'm glad you showed up. That you showed up when you did. But thank you very much. Thanks everybody for coming. And maybe a good topic of discussion in the future would be why people sign up and don't show up. Yeah, we had David Pelley and Paul Susanbeck and Perry Shepard, David Tredia, and and these people signed up just recently. I mean, they signed up last night, and I sent out reminders today. I hope that my reminders did not have defective links. I sent you a reminder, Norma.
I used that link to enter.
And I used that link and I couldn't get on, so I had to use your one you sent out to sign up.
Oh,
Oh, that might have happened to these people. I might, yeah. I got several phone calls, but they were not identified, and they might have been people trying to sign on. That's too bad.
well, it'll be a good video to watch.
Yeah, it will. Thank you. Okay, everybody. We will see you. Well, I don't know, about 2 weeks. I think we're going to be in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
Thanksgiving week 2.
Yeah.
It'll have to be the next week, which would be
December 1st.
Yeah.
Would that be it? Yep, you're right. December 1st. Okay.
Excellent. Okay, Luca, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
I hope we can have you participate in the future. And
Thanks.
I'm sure
It'll be my pleasure.
be more fun when you get your camera, but you certainly did contribute, and I appreciate it.
I will try to get the camera.
Thank you, inshallah.
Thank you.
Okay,
All
bye
right.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.